Welcome, everybody. We'll give it just a moment as Zoom lets everybody in and gets you guys settled. There'll be a few more people wandering into this webinar, the first for the 2021 NWSA webinar series. So it may take me a while as people come in at different times, but we're getting everybody joining. Great, glad to see everybody this morning. Welcome to the first webinar of 2021 from the National Wilderness Stewardship Alliance.
Hey, I have nowhere to go.
I'm sorry, dear. Just had my first interruption. Okay, dear, I'm live, so let's be careful here. Anyways, welcome. This is Randy Welsh. I'm the Executive Director for the National Wilderness Stewardship Alliance, and this is our first webinar for 2021. Dave Cantrell, our Programs Committee Chair with NWSA, is here with me to help moderate our session. Also with us today, we have Lisa Ronald, who is the Webmaster Wilderness Connect Specialist from the University of Montana Wilderness Institute, who will be talking about some of the resources available on Wilderness Connect, and Tim Devine, our National Park Service representative at the Arthur Carhart National Wilderness Training Center. We'll talk about some of the online training courses that are available for wilderness stewards. And then I'll be talking about some of the resources available on the NWSA website, as well as other websites that you might have access to. Our topic for today is really about what are the online resources that are available for the wilderness steward, both agency and non-agency folks, things that will help you in your day-to-day work, have access to a whole world of knowledge and expertise and experience beyond what you might currently have. These online resources that can provide anything from examples, case studies, practical solutions to real world problems. Also the online training where you can advance your own skills and knowledge, gain new skills, gain new knowledge. And then just quick answers to tough questions that you might be facing in your own work, in your own area with wilderness stewardship. So there's a lot of material that's available, and we would like to be able to provide that expertise to you and help you understand what it is that is available to you. So with no further delay, I'm going to go ahead and kick it off with Lisa Ronald from the Wilderness Institute, the University of Montana, to talk about some of the resources available on Wilderness Connect, because that is the go-to place for wilderness management within the four agencies, and should be one of the first stops for wilderness stewards as well. And then we'll have Tim talk about online training that's available, and then I'll finish up with the discussion about other nonprofit websites and NWSA's materials that will be available to you as well. So Lisa, go ahead, and then at the end of the presentations, we will offer time for questions and answers. Given the number of people, we'll probably just open the floor to everybody. If not, we'll use the chat function, just type your question in there. We'll monitor it and have responses queued up at the end of the session. So go ahead, Lisa, if you would start us off.
Randy, I'm looking at the participant list and it looks like Lisa might have dropped off.
Yeah, looks like she did somehow.
I don't see her in here anymore.
She might have had that, yeah, she's not there. I wonder what happened. Probably some sort of connection difficulty. Well, she will come back in just a minute, I'm sure. So Tim, while we're waiting for Lisa to make it back, would you mind going ahead and starting and talking about the online training that's available?
Sure, I can go ahead and jump in here. And maybe if you have a way to maybe text or call Lisa and find out where she might be. That might be a good thing too while I'm talking.
Yeah. Yeah, I will do that.
Okay. So welcome everybody. As Randy said, I'm Tim Devine. I'm the National Park Service representative at the Arthur Carhart National Wilderness Training Center. Hopefully all of you know about the training center, which is interagency. So I have counterparts with the Forest Service, Fish and Wildlife Service, and the Bureau of Land Management at the center as well. So today I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Hopefully I can get this the right one.
Lisa is just joining us again.
You want me to go on, or do you want her to jump in?
Let's see if she's ready to go.
Okay.
We'll put her on the spot, find out what happened, and make sure she's ready to go again.
Okay.
All
Hi,
right,
Randy.
Lisa. All right, Lisa. Was
As
there
if
an
on
earthquake
cue.
there? All
As if
right.
on cue,
Well,
there was a power flicker at 1 o'clock. Exactly.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. Well, we're queued up and ready for you to take off, Lisa.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go for it. I'm gonna just keep my camera off and share my screen. Randy, if you would mind promoting me to presenter so I can do that, that would be spectacular.
That's right. Yeah, we've got to put you back in since you went off. There we go.
Okay. Well, so I'm Lisa Ronald, and I am the Communications Director for the Wilderness Connect program, which is run in partnership with the Arthur Carhart National Wilderness Training Center, the Aldo Leopold Wilderness Research Institute, and the University of Montana's Wilderness Institute. And we shepherd the only wilderness website in the country that has information on all of our wilderness areas, as well as a lot of resources for practitioners like yourselves. So I'm going to just cover a very brief subset of the information we have available. There's a lot more on the site, so I would encourage you to explore that. And I'm going to start with our practitioners section. So if you visit Wilderness Connect and you click on the practitioners button, which is in the top right corner in the blue bar, you'll get to our practitioners section. And I clicked on toolboxes, which is what you're seeing now, which is the first set of resources that I'll cover. So we have, I think, 36 or 38 different toolboxes on different subjects that are of particular interest to those who manage or steward our wilderness areas. And so you can see from the listing here that we have a lot of different topics, everything from fire management to some more niche topics like paleontology, to wilderness character way here at the bottom, which has a lot of resources for those who partner with our land management agencies on wilderness character monitoring type of work, developing wilderness character narratives, those sorts of things. So there's a lot of information here. I won't go into any one particular toolbox, but generally the toolboxes contain all of your sort of legal resources, law, policy, regulatory information, case law, as well as examples of different types relevant to the topic, along with training resources and relevant research. So those are generally the types of information that you'll find in each of the toolboxes about any given topic. This year in particular, we have a whole host of new toolboxes that have been revised. So generally the toolboxes are revised every few years. So I won't just read those off since the list is rather extensive. I'll go ahead and put them in the chat here when I'm finished talking. But just know that there are some toolboxes that have gotten a review just this last year, in the last like 6 months. And we have 3 new toolboxes as well, in addition to those that have been revised. So the new ones include acquisitions, water rights, and water quality. And then we have another 6 or 7 toolboxes that are slated to be revised within the remainder of FY21. So in total, probably about half of our toolboxes will have gotten a look within the last year and a half. So the next section of Wilderness Connect that I'll show is our section on minimum requirements. So, you know, this is obviously the decision-making process that those of you that work with land management agencies may or may not be part of, or maybe you are, you know, kind of participants in like a public comment process. But a lot of information about minimum requirements and how those decisions are made, the resources that land managers use, and the process in which they need to go through. All of that information is listed here, in addition to a variety of case studies, and then training on minimum requirements analysis. Next, I want to highlight some resources in our under the Wildernesses tab. So, like I mentioned, we have pages for every single wilderness area in the country. So there, I believe, are 803. And we have a special search. We have some special search tools specifically for managers. So we have an advanced search that allows you to select a bunch of different criteria. So I, for example, have selected all of the BLM wilderness areas in the state of Utah that were designated after 2009. And so that gets me the list, which I'm showing here, the search results for all of the wilderness areas that were designated in Utah, managed by the BLM in 2019. It gives all of their acreages, and you can download your search results as a spreadsheet. So that's kind of a useful tool, just depending on the type of information that you're seeking. Also under the Wilderness's tab, we have a variety of maps. So we have an interactive map that is probably one of our most used resources on Wilderness Connect. We have a benefits wilderness story map that goes through and illustrates the various benefits of wilderness through geography. And then we have the printable map from 2019 that obviously you can download and take to a printer and print in large format if you want to. So I'll just switch over to the map tab here. And this is our interactive map. This provides searchable, it's searchable, so you can search for a particular wilderness area, you can search for towns or other sorts of place markers. You can change the base map. You can get more information about any given wilderness area. Have a variety of them, and we're actually seeking photographs for wilderness areas this year. So I guess that's just a request that I'll kind of throw out to this group, is if you have photographs of our wilderness areas, you can contact me about that, and I can give you some more information about what we're looking for. And this map will, if I press on the more button, about this particular wilderness area. We also have a section the Wilderness's tab, wilderness system as a whole. So we have a variety of summary reports. You can see those listed in the left-hand navigation column. The one that I'm showing right here is acreage by agency. So this is a summary total of all current acreages, broken down by land management agency, and there's a graph there. So some of the charts that we have break acreage down, acreage and wilderness counts down by state, by agency, by year, things of that nature. So those are some easy ways to get different sorts of statistics about the wilderness system. We also have an image library. And so all of the imagery that you see on our wilderness pages is also found in our image library. And the image library provides a way to search for images based on a variety of criteria. So in the spirit of winter, I am showing here the search for snow. So we have a variety of wilderness photographs from different wilderness areas that have the common theme of snow, that Tim here in just a second. I would encourage you to take a look at some of the other resources on Wilderness Connect. I have tried to highlight those that theoretically are most important to members of NWSA. So there are resources on here that are more relevant, obviously, to our federal land managers. And we have an entire section of Wilderness Connect that is written and dedicated to wilderness visitors. So those people who are looking to plan a trip to our wilderness areas. We have a whole plethora of search tools, maps, and interpretive information that is tailored to them as well. So a lot of resources on here. If you are looking for something in particular, or you're having trouble finding something, you can consider me to be your personal wilderness librarian, and I am available to you 24/7.
I see Lisa's putting some things in the chat as well. Okay, I see Hoosier National Forest Public Affairs in Indiana. Anybody else find the chat feature? Another person from Hoosier, Gila, Rec Planner, so some agency folks. Oh, good. Okay. Northwoods Volunteer, Wyoming Wilderness Association. Great. Wonderful. That's great. That helps me a bit. And I see Lisa just put her contact information in, and I will as well at the end. I'm going to leave my video off while I'm screen sharing just for the bandwidth portion. So let me get this here, and hopefully you can see my screen now. So I, as well, am in the practitioner side of Wilderness Connect. And what I'm going to do is concentrate on the training tab right here that you should see highlighting up. So when you click on the training tab, it's divided into several different categories, and you can see the different icons here for those. I'm going to first briefly talk about our classroom training. I'm not going to go into very much detail on this. All of our classroom training have a priority from our agency staff, and they usually fill all of our classes. So partners occasionally can get in if there's space allowed, but usually the agency staff fills up most of our classes. And you can see we have a national course, some regional courses, topic-specific courses. Probably the one that most of the partners could get into are these unit-specific courses, where myself, I go out to different Park Service units with Wilderness, and my counterparts go out to their agencies as well and do these unit workshops. And the best way to find out about these is for that particular unit. So say if Grand Tetons was having a unit workshop, they would reach out to their partners and volunteers to come in and come into these face-to-face classes as well. So that's about all I'm going to say about the classroom tab itself. So let's go back here, and now let's look at the online training courses. So if you go in here, you're going to see a whole lot of different courses. It looks similar to kind of the toolboxes that Lisa just showed you with these tiles. And we have 37 courses, and they range from general overview of the law, like this Wilderness Act 1, to very specific topics, say in the natural resource management or visitor use management and wilderness sections of it. So some of them, I'll just give an example of this like individual course, and it gives basic information. So I'll click on the the Wilderness Act to give some basic information about that course. And then there's a button down here to registration. And I really want to highlight this because this gets confusing to some people, because when you click on this registration tab, it actually takes you out to something called Pro-Valent Learning. And all of our courses are done in conjunction with the Epley Institute at the Indiana University. And this is their platform for registering for classes in here. And while you're in here, you can actually, if you scroll down, you can see a description of that particular course. So we're in the Wilderness Act 1. It gives you information about the course schedule, and then kind of learning objectives at the end. You'll be able to do these things after you go through the class itself. And then they also at the very bottom say, hey, you might be interested in these other wilderness classes as well. So that's just some basic information. There's also a tab for reviews, so you can see what other people have said about this particular course or any of the courses itself. So that might be helpful to you. But then back here at the top, when you go to register, it will ask you to identify your agency. So click on whichever agency, or if you're, say, from a partnering organization, you can click that. And then it's going to be like you're shopping on Amazon. So what you have to do is add the course to the cart. And you'll notice that there's no cost to it. Okay. So once you add it to your cart, and I think this is coming up. Show it in the cart, and then you have to basically select that. This is running pretty slow, so I think I might just get out of it. But actually, you go to your cart and you quote, purchase the course. And again, it doesn't cost anything. So once you do that and add it to your cart, it'll ask you to create an account. And then from then on out, when you go in, you can log in. So up here in the top corner, you can log in with your account. And then if you go to My Courses, that will list all the courses that you've registered for. So that's the way you can get to all your courses once you have selected them. Okay. And in that, you can take your course, then you'll have access to a completion certificate and any other additional information that they have in there. So let's go back to the courses. And so that was an individual course and how you can register for it. There's also suites of courses. So here, Natural Resource Management and Wilderness, at first blush, it looks like one class. But when you click on it, you'll actually find 12 different courses within this suite of Natural Resource Management and Wilderness. Everything from the fundamentals to monitoring, evaluating scientific proposals, a couple different fish and wildlife courses, air quality, soil and water, vegetation, and so on, down to night sky. So there's 12 different courses within this suite. Same is true for visitor use management, has 3 courses, cultural has 3 courses, paleo resources has 3 courses, special provisions have about 7 or 8 courses. So again, there's some of these are suites, some of them are individual courses, like these first ones are individual courses. You'll also find when you go into the information that there might be some prerequisites depending on the course. A couple of them don't have any prerequisites, like the course on ANILCA, or Alaska National Interest Lands Conservation Act. But other ones, say in some of these suites, you may have to take the Wilderness Act course before you can take the course, more specific course. So just be aware of that. So it's a good idea to kind of start with the Wilderness Act because it's pretty much a prerequisite for any of the courses itself. Okay. So the next thing I want to talk about are webinars, similar to what we're doing right now. So when you click on the webinar icon, you'll come up with a list of upcoming webinars. So you can see this second one right here on Wilderness Online Resources is the one that we're currently in. And then just scan down through and there go by month to month and different topics. These are all a variety of resources. Some are Carhart Center courses, as well as then a variety of conservation groups and partner groups that hold these courses. So like the Leave No Trace program, like this one up here, hosts that one. Society for Wilderness Stewardship hosts webinars. Those are all listed on here as well. And also the NWSA ones will be listed here on upcoming courses. Now, once the webinars have concluded, almost all of them, but not all of them, are recorded. And so you'll see this recordings link here. And once you click on that, you'll come up to this past recordings webinar page. And all of them that are recorded will be here, with the exception of, I believe, the National Wilderness Stewardship Alliance, Partnerships for National Trail System, and a few others. They, I think, host theirs on their individual web page archives. So if you're looking for, say, this one afterwards, you may have to go to the NWSA site to find the recording for that one. But all the other ones are listed here. And some of these are general and interagency in nature, and others are agency specific. So if I scroll down here a little bit, you'll see here's one on the National Park Service Introduction to Wilderness Character, or Wilderness in the NPS, an exploration of the Wilderness Stewardship Division for the National Park Service. So some are agency specific, but they're recorded so everybody can get to them. And they're individual. Other ones, like this Wilderness Information Series, if you click on that one, it actually takes you to a listing of all the individual sessions that were within this Wilderness Information Series virtual course that the Carhart Center put on. So like on this one, you'll see there's one on the National Wilderness Preservation System, preserving wilderness character, more specific on untrammeled and natural qualities of wilderness character, climate change, and various different topics we did throughout the week on this series. And all of those are recorded for you to take a look at. The National Wilderness Workshop that was conducted last October, that one also is here and has a series of recordings of all the sessions that were held during that workshop. And so another place to see, if you weren't able to attend that workshop, or you just want to go back and review something, you can look at all the recordings from that as well. And with that, I think I'll leave it at that and turn it back over to Randy. And then after he's done, if you have any questions, I can answer them then. Randy, if you're talking, you're on mute.
Okay, so the old Zoom mute. You guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you now, Randy.
All right, thanks. Yeah, it was, Zoom had muted me, unfortunately. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop my video too, just so that I've got potentially some bandwidth issues where I'm located right now. Well, maybe not. So anyways, what I wanted to talk about is our NWSA website. As you've seen from both Lisa and Tim, the Wilderness Connect website is really your one-stop shop for basically most wilderness information. It was established back around 2001, 2000 as that one-stop spot for anything to do with the National Wilderness Preservation System by the four land management agencies united together, partnered with the University of Montana and the Carhart Center, and decided to make that the one spot where we would put centralized location information to be available for agency folks, for wilderness practitioners with nonprofits, and with any other person that was interested in wilderness management. So by and large, a lot of the information that you as a wilderness steward, if you want to learn more about wilderness management, the Wilderness Connect website is the first place to go look. But there are a number of other places that have specific information that would be useful to you as a wilderness steward. And so I just want to share some of those resources that are available to you, give you a quick run through, and then we'll stop for some questions and answers. As you're listening, again, be thinking of those questions, and then we'll type them into the chat section, and Dave will be monitoring that and be getting them prepared for when we end this presentation. So on the National Wilderness Stewardship Alliance website, and our NWSA website is meant to be a focal point for wilderness stewardship groups, providing a one-stop shop for resources that would be of interest to volunteer stewardship groups. And the analogous to the toolboxes on the Wilderness Connect website would be the resources section here on the NWSA website, where we have gathered a number of topical resources that would be available, be useful for the wilderness steward. Not as extensive as what is on Wilderness Connect, because we don't need to duplicate what is there, but resources that we think would be beneficial for wilderness stewardship groups. And some of these have been flavored to be more of a nonprofit audience and a volunteer audience. So things that talk about wilderness in general, how to start, stop, revitalize your wilderness group. So topics that will help you grow and manage your own nonprofit. Fundraising tips, how to work with the communications and the media, how to build partnerships, and then some archival information about our annual National Wilderness Workshops, our webinars, and then wilderness character monitoring, which is of interest to all. So these are again geared more towards the partner audience and provide that volunteer nonprofit spin. And we're going through a process right now. Our program subcommittee is reviewing the materials that we have available and looking to update them this year. Some of them are a little, I'd have to say some of them are a little dated. They've been in existence for 6 to 8 years and haven't been reviewed lately. They're all going through an update this year, this season, this spring, and we expect to be rebuffing and polishing these materials and bringing them up to speed in a lot of different ways. And as Tim mentioned, they have webinars. All the past webinars that the NWSA has had are located here. You can see our past webinars, and where we have video or access to them, the links to get to that material are there as well. And so you can, if you haven't been able to catch up with one of the existing webinars, you can come here and get caught up by reviewing some of the past webinars. As well as, let's see, other resources that we have available again, was our COVID page, where early in the pandemic, we provided a lot of materials for how to deal with the COVID crisis. Again, this is information that many of you have probably developed your own materials for how to deal with COVID, but as we get into 2021, there'll be some updates and other materials available. And then what I wanted to, and then occasionally NWSA will do action alerts as issues that affect wilderness stewardship groups and our use of wilderness. We will have action alerts show up to help people understand what is going on, how they can be involved in keeping abreast of the information, and how they can get involved in getting their opinions and their thoughts established in the process. And the last thing I want to show on the NWSA is our funding programs page. I know everybody in the nonprofit world is, of course, interested in funding. So I would point you to come here as a general overview for the types of funding programs that NWSA provides, and then specifically to the different sub-programs that we run. Our Wilderness Stewardship Performance Funding, our Trail Partner Stewardship Funding, our National Forest System Trail Partner Stewardship Funding, and then Boots on the Ground funding grants when we have available funding for those. In terms of our WSP funding, that's geared towards wilderness stewardship performance metrics. The WSP program has been a valuable program for wilderness stewardship groups in order to complete the WSP elements that are attached to each wilderness area, helping the Forest Service to increase their WSP scores for each wilderness area. Forest Service has a challenge cost share program with us that will enable groups to take on some of that work. You see here, this is all for 2020. We're in the process of updating the information for 2021. And let's see, we're at the 12th of January. So within the next week, I would look for it. Next week, we'll have updated information for 2021 moving forward. The same way with our National Forest System Trail Stewardship Partner Funding. This has been a national cost share program with the Forest Service as well that helps pay for trail maintenance work that's done on the National Forest by stewardship groups. Again, this information is all based on 2020. It'll be updated, and I'm pleased that we should have money for both of these programs in 2021. And so start checking back next week for that program information. The deadlines on both of these programs will be established sometime around the March 30th or so. So there's still plenty of time to put proposals together going into next year. Our Boots on the Ground grant program is one that we like doing because it helps provide funding for direct on the ground operations of wilderness stewardship groups. But it is one that's dependent upon us securing funding for it. We haven't had a partner yet, though we're working with a number of potential corporate groups to provide boots on the ground funding that we might be able to announce hopefully later in this year. Those programs are generally smaller scale and available for equipment and other supply purchases that will help nonprofits do operational work in wilderness. Let's see, and the last thing I wanted to share on the website, let's see, I can get where I can see it. Well, I'll point it out, but so occasionally, well, that's not the right place. Okay, so I'll just come back to the front. That if you want to find out what's happening you know, in the National Wilderness Stewardship Alliance or in wilderness stewardship in general, just come to our front page. We'll usually put items there that are topical that will direct people then to other places within our website that have information that will be more detailed. But this generally is a splash page to get people headed in the right direction. And if you want to sign up for updates and to be given a part of our Friday newsletter, our Friday Field Notes newsletter, you sign up here for updates. That'll put you on the mailing list to get a weekly or bi-weekly update of what's happening in wilderness stewardship. All right, so that's it from the NWSA website. And I wanted to point out a couple of other websites that I think are useful for you as a wilderness steward to be aware of, because other groups have done a lot of this work too, have other alternate resources. So besides the NWSA website, I would ask that you go look at the Volunteer for Outdoor Colorado website. That's voc.org. They have a number of similar sort of toolkits that we have. They have done an amazing, outstanding job developing resources for volunteer groups there in Colorado, and all that information is applicable in any of the other states. I think they have one of the best set of resources, and I think that they're willing to share that information out to others around the country as well. So Ann Baker Easley, who is the current executive director for Volunteer Outdoor Colorado, serves on our NWSA board. So she's well aware that we're aware of the resources that they have available, and hopefully over time we'll be able to make more use of them ourselves at NWSA. Another website that has good resources for the volunteer steward is the Partnership for the National Trail System, the pnts.org. The partnership deals with the national scenic and historic trails primarily, but because wilderness runs through many of these trails run through many wilderness areas, they do have some resources that you might find useful as a wilderness steward. And because trails are predominantly one of the key infrastructure issues that we deal with in wilderness, also consider looking at the American Trails website. They have information, webinars, and other information that spills over into the wilderness arena from time to time. For our friends from the BLM, of course, the Conservation Land Alliance is a similar organization. NWSA having a strong focus with the Forest Service. The Conservation Land Alliance has a strong BLM focus and is geared pretty much with the BLM National Conservation Lands. And then for one other website is the Public Lands Alliance. The Public Lands Alliance is what we used to think about as like the interp associations, the more front country type of connections. They have website information, webinars as well that may have from time to time some wilderness application. Certainly will help with small group, nonprofit management information all the time. And I'll just finish that there's also a host of other potential sites that you can visit in the nonprofit arena. Sites like the Nonprofit Library that offer website resources for small nonprofit groups. There's a number of other sites. You just have to do a Google on nonprofit administration, nonprofit support, and a number of these sites will pop up that have information that will help you deal with issues in the nonprofit arena. As many of our wilderness stewardship groups probably using those resources. So let's go ahead and open the floor to some questions that people might have about these wilderness stewardship resources and others that our experts would be aware of. So Dave, do you have some questions already lined up?
Got one question here, and I'm wondering whether we might want to open up. There are not so many of us. Maybe we can all get on screen here and chat together. But a question from myself on behalf of a couple of names here who I know are relatively new to the amazing array of resources that we have. When someone comes to this and they're relatively new, they're a volunteer, perhaps they're working with an organization that's just get started, how can they find their way into this mass of resources? What are the paths to get started? And Lisa, you may be the best person to answer that, but I know that Randy also will have great leads there. How do you get into all of this stuff? How do you get started?
That's a great question, Dave. And one of the resources that I know has been updated this last summer is the Wilderness Ranger Toolbox. And I realize that, you know, not everyone who comes in new to wilderness may consider themselves like a ranger, quote. But I know that this is a resource that a lot of federal offices refer their new folks to, like their seasonal folks. So again, not assuming that all people who come to work in wilderness come into the field as seasonals. Obviously, I think we all know that that is a trajectory that a lot of folks take to get into wilderness employment in the longer term. But that might be one resource to sort of start with, is this Wilderness Ranger Toolbox on Wilderness Connect. You know, I do also know that, or at least I know that this happens sometimes. It may not happen other times, but there are trainings, I think, that include some Wilderness Connect resources. So, you know, things like the Wilderness Skills Institute kind of dovetail in. Those are some trainings that I think people who are coming into new to wilderness often are part of. And so I think, you know, Wilderness Connect's resources are often kind of included in other sorts of trainings, or even trainings that are more informal. If, you know, a supervisor is simply talking with employees. So I think that might be, you know, a relevant just point to suggest to folks on the phone, you know, obviously is that if you are training new people, you know, prepping them by providing them a list of a handful of things that they can check out on their own online is always a great way to get those people introduced to wilderness.
Yeah.
And I would just echo that you know, the people shouldn't be afraid to just dive in and explore. I think, you know, you may think that Wilderness Connect is more geared toward the agencies. Well, agencies sponsor it, agencies support the development of it. That provides the best subject matter expertise that we have for management of wilderness. But wilderness stewards should just dive right in and start looking at the topics that are of interest to them, to explore the different facets of wilderness and to grow and expand their own knowledge and their own capabilities. I think just doing that kind of exploration by need is a great way to learn and expand your own knowledge set. And as you saw from both Tim and Lisa's presentation, the wealth of resources available on Wilderness Connect are pretty fabulous. It's had almost 20 years now to grow and build up some of these fabulous resources. So definitely should be the first place people go to look for information, and then can branch out from there.
And if I could just add one more thing, and I'm just going to do a really fast screen share here for folks. So on our homepage, we have a variety of features, and one of the featured items currently is wilderness jobs. So people who are kind of looking to come into the wilderness profession, this is a page, this is one of the examples of our public content, but this has a lot of information on sort of how to get into the wilderness profession, including some background on what sort of educational opportunities you would need to have to sort of qualify to get your foot in the door. So Pete, I know you have a question in the chat about certificate programs. That's sort of one of the educational tips that we provide is, enrollment in some sort of advanced certificate program. And we have one at the University of Montana called the Wilderness Management Distance Education Program. It is both offered for undergraduate and graduate credit. It is a 4-course offering that offers an advanced certificate in wilderness management at the end of the completion of those 4 courses. And I think that often is a differentiating factor for someone in an applicant pool as to whether or not they have a certificate of that caliber on their resume. One of the suggestions we have also thrown out to both supervisors and potential students is that this year in particular, throw your stimulus money down for furthering your career. Spend your stimulus check on a certificate program, and challenge your employer to match that contribution. So I'll just obviously throw that plug out there for both supervisors and students. But this page gives some more information both on federal jobs, nonprofit jobs, has some different job listings. Right now, we tend to recycle this particular page about this time every year, again, when people are looking for a lot of seasonal work.
Yeah, and I guess I'll jump in and just add too that we're kind of been talking about and concentrating on online resources and online ways of getting things, but and it's a little more difficult with COVID right now, but don't forget the old-fashioned, go to the local forest office, go to the local park, and talk with folks in person, and find out what they have to say. So don't forget that in-person resource if you're close by somewhere, or pick up the phone. If you're not right next door, pick up the phone. Use Wilderness Connect. Go to a particular wilderness area. The contact information's right there on Wilderness Connect, and dial them up. So don't forget that old-fashioned in-person contact.
I see we have another question too about the Great American Outdoors Act and whether that might affect some of the funding opportunities that are available, and how it might affect some of these resources. I can say with a surety that it's probably not going to affect the resources that we have available here, because it's geared to the Great American Outdoors funding is geared towards eliminating deferred maintenance issues on the public lands and national parks, national forests, BLM lands. So it's really focused primarily on hard infrastructure improvements. And how potentially there's the opportunity to apply it to some wilderness trails, maybe some trailheads, some other infrastructure deferred maintenance needs that might exist in wilderness. But I can tell you from experience that the way the Forest Service has handled the first several years of the Great American Outdoors funding, that it's not likely to affect the NWSA funding program and opportunities that we have available to us. Because of some tight reporting deadlines, they've pretty much kept the information in-house and have developed their programs of work based on their existing deferred maintenance schedules that they have at the local unit, at the forest and the region level. And most of the Forest Service GAOA projects are going to be handled at a regional level rather than out of the Washington office. There is some hope that as we get into the later years of the 5-year GAO funding, that there might be some opportunity for applying some of those funds to some of our wilderness stewardship performance projects, certainly some of the trails projects. the connections there are still being worked out, and still too early to see how it's gonna play out. But we're hopeful. There is good news though for organizations at a local level. Rather than waiting for a national sort of program, many of the GAO type projects at a local level are going to involve partners. And so as a stewardship partner group, I would strongly suggest that you talk to your local ranger, your local forest supervisor, and insert yourself into that discussion at the local level as to how your group can be involved in helping to complete some of the GAOA projects, and that there is the opportunity for those local units to create specific partnership challenge cost share agreements with the local units to help accomplish some of the GAOA type project, deferred maintenance projects. And I think that's how it's played out for the first year, the first couple of years in their current project listing, and certainly in years to come, that opportunity is there for the local partner groups. So start talking to your rangers and your supervisors and see how you can help participate in that particular round of funding that exists for the next 5 years. And see, one other question, that other website that I mentioned was the Partnership for the National Trail System. That's pnts.org. They're the groups that are working with the historic and national scenic trails. They have materials that you might find useful as well. There are other questions, Dave, that people have?
Nothing else showing, and we're right on time. So maybe it's time to
Okay. All right. Well, with that, I guess we will draw this session to a close. I want to thank everybody for participating. Hope you'll go out and look at some of these online resources, share that information with others around you. Hope that everybody is able to raise their level of knowledge. Thanks again to Lisa and Tim and Dave for participating in our webinar today. Thank all of you for coming in, joining in and listening to. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Randy.